Today, we're diving into the most controversial question in engineering leadership. Should engineering managers code? Not the diplomatic, it depends, takes you see on LinkedIn, but the brutal reality where hands-on managers become bottlenecks, non-coding managers lose technical credibility, and teams suffer regardless of which approach their leader chooses. Three experts with radically different philosophies, real disaster stories from both camps, and the uncomfortable truth that this debate reveals deeper problems with how we think about technical leadership. I'm Sam, and someone just asked me why our VP of Engineering is reviewing pull requests at midnight.
I code every day and I manage a team of 12 engineers. I review critical architecture decisions, I ship features, and I debug production issues alongside my team. You can't lead engineers effectively if you don't understand the codebase, the technical constraints, and the daily reality of what your team faces. Management without technical context is just bureaucracy.
I stopped coding 3 years ago when I became a manager, and it was the best decision I ever made. My job is to hire great engineers, remove blockers, provide strategic direction, and develop people's careers. Every minute I spend coding is a minute I'm not spending on the human and organizational challenges that actually determine team success. Coding managers are doing two jobs badly.
I've studied hundreds of engineering teams across different company sizes, stages, and contexts. The manager coding debate is a symptom of deeper problems: unclear role definitions, broken career paths, and organizational dysfunction. The real question isn't whether managers should code, it's what kind of leadership your specific team actually needs.
Dr. Martinez, guide us through this war zone. David and Sarah, prepare to defend your philosophies with real evidence, not just theoretical arguments. No mercy, no diplomatic, both approaches have merit.
Let's start with concrete disasters. David, give me an example where a non-coding manager created real problems for a team.
I inherited a team from a manager who hadn't written code in 5 years. He'd been making architectural decisions based on outdated knowledge and theoretical best practices. The team was building a microservices architecture when a monolith would have been perfect for their scale. He couldn't evaluate technical trade-offs, so engineers either ignored his input or spent massive time explaining basic concepts. Technical credibility was zero.
That's a management competence problem, not a coding problem. A good manager would have recognized their knowledge gap and deferred to the team's expertise. The real disaster is coding managers who become single points of failure.
Sarah, give me an example of a hands-on manager creating problems.
I worked with a manager who insisted on reviewing every pull request personally. He was technically brilliant, but he became the bottleneck for all development. Engineers waited days for his feedback, he was constantly context switching between code and management tasks, and he had zero time for career development, hiring, or strategic planning. The team's velocity collapsed even though individual engineers were productive.
That's a process problem, not a coding problem. I review architecture-critical PRs, not every single change. You can be hands-on without being a micromanager. The key is knowing which technical decisions require manager input and which don't.
Let's dig deeper. David, how do you balance coding with management responsibilities?
I spend about 30% of my time coding, focused on architecture decisions, complex debugging, and unblocking critical path issues. I don't take on feature work that could be done by team members. My coding time is strategic. I'm solving problems that require both technical depth and organizational context. This keeps me connected to the real challenges the team faces.
But what about hiring, performance reviews, career development, cross-team coordination, and strategic planning? Those are full-time responsibilities. When do you do actual management work if you're spending 30% of your time coding?
I do management work, but I'm more efficient because I understand the technical context. My one-on-ones are focused on real technical growth opportunities, not abstract career conversations. I can evaluate candidates' technical skills directly rather than relying on others' assessments. My strategic planning is grounded in actual implementation reality.
Sarah, how do you maintain technical credibility without coding?
I stay involved in architectural discussions, I understand our technical stack and constraints, and I ask good questions rather than trying to provide answers. My credibility comes from hiring excellent engineers, removing their blockers, and helping them succeed. Engineers respect managers who make their jobs easier, not managers who compete with them for technical work.
But how do you evaluate whether architectural decisions are good? How do you know if your team is over-engineering or under-engineering solutions? How do you assess technical debt trade-offs without hands-on experience with the codebase?
I rely on my team's expertise and judgment. I hire senior engineers who can make those decisions. My job is to provide business context and strategic direction, not to second-guess every technical choice. Trust and delegation are core management skills.
This seems to depend heavily on team composition and company stage. How do these approaches work at different scales?
At early-stage companies or smaller teams, hands-on management is essential. You don't have the luxury of pure management overhead. Everyone needs to contribute technically while also providing leadership. As you scale, the approach needs to evolve, but technical credibility remains important.
At larger companies, pure management becomes necessary. When you're managing 20-plus engineers across multiple teams, you simply can't stay hands-on with all the technical details. Your impact comes through organizational design, hiring, and strategic direction, not individual code contributions.
What about the skills decay issue? David, how do you keep your technical skills current while managing?
My technical skills evolve differently, not necessarily decay. I'm less sharp on implementation details, but stronger on system design and architecture. I understand technology choices and trade-offs better because I see the business impact. It's a different kind of technical depth, focused on leadership-relevant problems.
I've accepted that my deep technical skills have atrophied, and I'm okay with that. I've developed different skills: organizational design, strategic thinking, people development, that are more valuable at my level. Trying to maintain cutting-edge technical skills while doing management well is an impossible balancing act.
How do your teams react to your respective approaches?
Engineers appreciate that I understand their daily challenges and can contribute to technical discussions. They come to me with complex problems because they know I can help debug or provide technical guidance. There's mutual respect based on shared technical experience.
My engineers appreciate that I focus on removing obstacles and providing clear direction rather than trying to be another senior engineer. They get frustrated with managers who slow down development by inserting themselves into every technical decision. They want leadership, not competition.
What about the career development implications? How do you help engineers grow technically?
I can provide specific, actionable technical mentoring because I understand the codebase and the challenges. I can pair with engineers on complex problems, review their architectural decisions, and help them level up their technical skills through hands-on collaboration.
I connect engineers with appropriate technical mentors both inside and outside the company. I focus on career pathing, skill gap identification, and creating opportunities for technical growth. My value is organizational, getting engineers the resources and opportunities they need to develop.
Let's talk about hiring and technical assessment. How do your approaches differ?
I can evaluate candidates' technical skills directly. I understand the specific challenges of our codebase and can assess whether candidates can handle them. I can spot red flags in technical discussions and ask probing questions about implementation details. This leads to better hiring decisions.
I rely on my team for technical assessment and focus on cultural fit, communication skills, and career motivation. My hiring decisions are based on whether candidates will thrive in our environment and contribute to team dynamics. Technical skills can be developed, attitude and fit are harder to change.
What about when things go wrong? How do you handle production issues or technical crises?
I can jump in and help debug critical issues. During incidents, I'm another technical resource, not just a coordinator. I understand the system well enough to help identify root causes and implement fixes. This is especially valuable during high-stress situations when every technical person matters.
My role during incidents is coordination, communication, and resource allocation. I make sure the right technical people are involved, stakeholders are informed, and the team has what they need to resolve the issue. I don't need to debug code to be valuable during a crisis.
Are there situations where you'd recommend the opposite approach from what you practice?
In very large organizations or when managing managers, pure management makes more sense. You need people who can focus entirely on organizational challenges. But for most engineering teams, especially at startups or growing companies, hands-on technical leadership is more valuable.
For very small teams or highly technical domains where the manager needs deep expertise, hands-on management might be necessary. But most teams benefit more from clear leadership and organizational support than from another senior engineer who also happens to be the manager.
What are the biggest misconceptions about your respective approaches?
People assume coding managers are micromanagers or that we're avoiding management responsibilities. Good hands-on management is strategic. We code when it adds unique value, not just because we enjoy it. We're not trying to be the best engineer on the team. We're providing technical leadership.
People assume non-coding managers are out-of-touch bureaucrats who don't understand technology, but you can maintain technical awareness without writing production code. Good management requires deep understanding of the business, the team, and the technology, just not at the implementation level.
So the great manager coding debate isn't really about coding at all. It's about role definition, team context, and organizational design. Both approaches can work brilliantly or fail spectacularly, depending on execution and situational fit. This is more like organizational psychology than technical strategy.
Welcome to the complexity of engineering leadership. The question isn't whether managers should code, it's what kind of leadership your specific team needs, how the manager can add the most value, and whether the organization supports whatever approach you choose. Context matters more than ideology.
This episode was brought to you by Engineer Panic, where we expose the nuance behind tech's most polarizing debates, because understanding why both coding and non-coding managers can fail might be more important than picking sides. We're back. Let's talk about the practical reality of choosing and executing either approach. David, what's the most important advice for managers who want to stay hands-on?
Be strategic about your technical contributions. Don't take on work that your team members could do better or faster. Focus on problems that require both technical depth and organizational context. And never let coding become an excuse to avoid difficult management conversations or decisions.
For managers choosing the non-coding path, invest heavily in staying technically aware. Attend architectural discussions, understand system constraints, and ask good questions. Your credibility comes from making good organizational decisions that enable technical success, not from avoiding technical topics.
Most importantly, be explicit about your approach with your team and organization. The worst failures happen when expectations are misaligned. If you're hands-on, make sure your team knows when and how you'll be involved technically. If you're pure management, be clear about how you'll support them without competing for technical work.
What are the biggest red flags for either approach?
Coding managers who become bottlenecks or single points of failure. If your team is waiting for you to review everything or make every technical decision, you're doing it wrong. Also, managers who use coding as an escape from management responsibilities.
Non-coding managers who can't contribute to technical discussions or who make organizational decisions that ignore technical reality. Also, managers who become completely disconnected from the actual work their teams are doing.
The biggest red flag is religious adherence to either approach without considering context. Teams, company stages, and business needs change. The best managers adapt their style to what their specific situation requires, not what they personally prefer or what worked at their last company.
How should organizations support managers regardless of which approach they choose?
Clear role definitions and performance criteria. Don't evaluate coding managers on lines of code, and don't evaluate non-coding managers on technical architecture decisions. Focus on team outcomes, productivity, retention, technical quality, and business impact. The approach matters less than the results.
What keeps each of you up at night about your chosen approach?
The constant balancing act. Every minute I spend coding is a minute not spent on management. I worry about missing important team dynamics or organizational issues because I'm focused on technical problems. The context switching is mentally exhausting.
Staying relevant as technology evolves rapidly. I worry about making organizational decisions that ignore technical realities I don't fully understand. The distance from implementation details makes me rely heavily on my team's expertise, which can be a blind spot.
The polarization of this debate. Teams suffer when managers feel pressured to choose sides rather than choosing what works for their specific context. Both approaches can be effective, but organizations often reward one style while punishing the other, creating unnecessary conflict.
How do you evaluate whether your approach is working?
Team performance metrics: velocity, quality, retention. But more importantly, qualitative feedback from engineers about whether they feel supported, challenged, and able to do their best work. Management effectiveness shows up in team satisfaction and career growth.
Final advice for managers trying to decide their approach.
Consider your team's needs, your company's stage, and your own strengths. Don't choose based on what you enjoy or what feels comfortable. Choose based on what will make your team most effective. And be prepared to evolve your approach as circumstances change.
Focus on outcomes, not activities. Whether you code or not matters less than whether your team is productive, growing, and delivering value. Good management is about enabling others to succeed, not about proving your own technical competence.
Question the premise. Maybe the real problem isn't whether managers should code, but how organizations define management roles and support different leadership styles. The best teams have clarity about what they need from their leaders and the flexibility to adapt as circumstances change.
This has been Engineer Panic. We've learned that the great manager coding debate is really about context, role clarity, and organizational design rather than universal best practices. Both approaches can work brilliantly or fail spectacularly, depending on execution and fit. Sweet dreams, and may your management approach match your team's actual needs.
Thanks for the debate. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to review a critical architecture proposal while also preparing for 3 one-on-ones and a hiring committee meeting. The context switching never ends.
And I need to figure out why our technical roadmap isn't aligning with business priorities, and whether that's a communication problem, a planning problem, or something I'm missing about our technical constraints.
Keep building, keep adapting, and keep questioning whether your management approach is serving your team's needs or just your personal preferences. The future belongs to leaders who optimize for team success, not ideological purity.
This has been Engineer Panic, where polarizing debates meet practical reality. Until next time, remember, your management approach isn't wrong because it's different from others. It's wrong if it doesn't make your team more effective.